There's another rules video, making up for all the ones that never got made. We're going to have a look at weather, and we're going to have a look at the night turn as well. Now, weather for Leipzig is a bit different. Now, this is quite an old game, and the weather is variable. Okay, now often you will have, particularly if you're looking at a more modern one, you'd have a weather phase where you get random weather, which is like this setup here for Leipzig, or you would get a historical weather chart. If you're using the historical weather chart, the actual weather checks occur on the first turn of each battle, but they occur at very specific times on the actual turn order track. Either it'll be like 12 noon, 3 p.m, 6 p.m, etc. Now in Leipzig, we're going to have a look at the variable weather thing. So first thing you do is each turn where the weather is to be checked, you will roll a dice, and 1d6, and depending on that, you're going to decide whether it's fair, frost, rain, or mud. Okay, and that's for the Leipzig scenarios. Hanau is slightly different, but we're not going to be playing Hanau, so we'll ignore that. You have a little die roll modifier. The previous weather was rain or snow. You get a -1 to your roll. Okay, once you've decided what the weather condition it is, you roll a second dice and add it to the unmodified die roll to determine when the next recovery turn is. Okay, so depending on the total of the two dice, it's either checked in anything from 2 to 7 turns further along the track. Now, weather effects are on this chart here, so they can affect things like units' strength in combat, whether it sort of reduces its ability to bombard, whether attack, retreat, shock results are in effect, whether you can charge. You can get certain movement penalties in weather, like mud makes it much harder to move. Whether the weather itself blocks line of sight, like rain will block the line of sight to target. Whether you can deploy pontoons, and whether you can build improved positions. Okay, in certain games you can get frozen when there's frost. You could also get frozen rivers and lakes, but it doesn't apply to Leipzig. So that pretty much does weather. It's quite straightforward, really. Next thing we'll have a look at is night turns. Now night turns are marked in black on the tracks here. Now there's some very specific rules for night. Obviously, because it's October at Leipzig, night comes in really early, whereas at 6 p.m, whereas if you're playing a game like Waterloo, I think the night comes in at 10 p.m. Now during the night turn, the only units that can move are units that are actually under march orders. Now march order is something that is either given at the march order turn and in the night. If I can find it. It's actually not marked here. It's marked on the later games. Anyway, there's a specific turn. I think it's 3 a.m. in the morning. You can assign march orders to any unit that isn't marching already. Now, those march orders don't take effect until the first turn of daylight. But a march order, effectively, what it does is, for example, here, this unit under the blue thing, as a march order, it came in as a reinforcement, and reinforcements can always be given march orders. And its actual destination is this blue hex. So a destination's got to be either that's actually been moved with me messing around. It's got to be either a bridge hex side or a town hex side. So he's got a march order to Mockern. Now, units that are under march order, they don't have to worry about supply. Okay. Now, so we've already said at night the only units that can actually move are units under march orders. Now, a march order here, at night, the infantry have a movement allowance of 2 and the cavalry have a movement allowance of 3. Other things that you can do at night is you can't attack, but you can disengage. So that means normally when you're in an enemy zone of control, like here, these units here are in French zones of control. Well, actually they're not because of the river. It's not a good example. I can't find a good example, but if you are in an enemy zone of control, you can actually move back 1 hex disengaging. So that's a form of movement, but it's called a disengagement, so that's allowed. You obviously can't bombard or anything like that. Nothing like cavalry charges or anything like that is allowed during the night turns. One thing as well with night turns, there's a special night turn where all your units that are in the units awaiting recovery box become automatically recovered, and this only happens, it should be marked on the charts. Yeah, it is. It's where it says there 6 AM 2.2A recovery, so that's your automatic recovery. That'll do it for weather, march orders, which I wasn't intending to do, and night turn.